if he throws in 60 yards on 5 catches and a touchdown, like, spank my ass and call me daddy or something. I don't know.
You're listening to Let's Talk Fantasy Football, where men of fantasy genius have realized, hey guys, we don't need real football skills to dominate on the fantasy field. Yeah. So slap on your pads and grab your helmet. Shit's about to get real.
Welcome back, everybody, to another edition of Let's Talk Fantasy Football, a special edition, a Thanksgiving edition of Let's Talk Fantasy Football. I am your host tonight. My name is Nick Walsh. My voice got really high there. And we are ready to crush some Thanksgiving football with my good friend, fearless leader, Nick Schreck. Schreck, how are we doing?
Walsh, I'm doing great, man. We're here to talk Turkey Day football, and unfortunately, the NFL dealt us a blow earlier today, announcing that we're going to get screwed out of arguably the best game of the day. But I'm pumped either way. We're here to talk football. Thanksgiving is here, and especially in a year where you can talk about blessings. We're all healthy, to my knowledge, knock on wood. Hopefully everybody stays healthy. And I know we're not our podcast is football, but we want you guys all to stay healthy too. But Walsh, I'm pumped. I'm pumped to talk some football. Yeah,
me too. It is a shame that we don't have, the third game that we wanted to, and I'm sure we will go a little bit shorter than we intended.
Absolutely.
But, we've got 2 games of I was going to say varying quality, but they're more or less the same quality, and it's bad. But football is football. I've this year in particular, I don't know about you, but I've enjoyed some of these matchups of shitty teams where it's like shitty, but it's fun. Like I just laugh the whole game because it's funny. So that's what I'm expecting out of tomorrow. And hopefully, we can have some good food, have some good drinks, get a little loose and enjoy some shitty football.
The bottomless mimosas will help.
Yeah. That's going to be the move to start the day. We're not rolling into Texans Lions at 9:30 a.m. Pacific without a mimosa in hand. So that's how we're going to get going. But I guess we'll just jump right into that game. We have Houston at Detroit. Houston is a 3-point road favorite with an over-under of 51.5. I know they're on the road, but I expected this spread to be a lot higher after what we saw out of Detroit this past week, where they just got, beaten off the field by Carolina, an absolutely pathetic performance, put up 0 points. I guess starting with Detroit, Stafford is not. He's in. He's not on the injury report going into this week, so that seems good.
Yep.
But I don't know if that right thumb ligament issue is giving him issues, but he looked fucking terrible this past week.
Oh my God, very bad.
Do you have any confidence against this bad defense?
No, I mean you can't. It's unfortunate because it is a spot where you hoped to be able to use him, but. We talked about this on last week's podcast with Stafford and the thumb injury, and we're like, well, and I did support him. I stood behind him on the podcast. I said, look, if they play him, I'm not worried about the thumb when it comes to Marvin Jones and the rest of that offense with Hawk Daddy and Stafford was bad, and that doesn't impact. I'm not even going to talk about the other guys. So I have no confidence. You should be looking elsewhere, have other options or whatever. If you were rolling Stafford, playing Stafford in some leagues or whatever your option was. But it's unfortunate because you can't. They say he's fine, but the fuck does that mean?
Yeah, I'm absolutely not rolling him out because QB is just such a deep position that you really don't need to. There are other guys that you can go to. Derek Carr against Atlanta, for example. I mean, I'm sure we'll get to a lot of guys on the podcast later in the week. But yeah, I cannot trust Stafford. I can trust one of the guys that you talked about, and that's Hawk Daddy, and that's really just due to positional.
Sure.
Situations there where, he led the team in targets and air yards this past week. And I definitely trust rolling him out there. Are you still on Hawk Daddy?
I'm there, man. I mean, the Texans are bad against the tight end. They surrendered the NFL's 9th most yards to tight end. And he's delivered 50-plus yards or a touchdown in 9 of 10 games this year. It's the Hawk Daddy we know and love, and he's going to give you a Thanksgiving Day feast.
Love that. The other wide receivers, we saw them. They're going to have the same wide receiver crew as this past week. There was a possibility that Amendola was going to come back. It doesn't seem like that's the case, but we're looking at a Marvin Jones, Marvin Hall, and then Jamal Agnew being the primary slot receiver, and Quintez Cephas and believe it or not, Mohamed Sanu actually
back from the dead, baby.
Dude, I looked at the box score from this past week and was like, Mohamed Sanu is on the Lions. Like,
you're like, this is a mistake. Somebody messed up here. There's no way Mohamed Sanu is still part of this.
Yeah, Marvin Jones and Mohamed Sanu back together, back to their early Cincinnati days. But anyway, I think I trust Marvin Jones. I think if you're going to try anyone else, it should be probably Jamal Agnew, who actually ended up with 6 targets in that game. Marvin Hall, we know he's sort of a situational deep threat. He's very boomer bust.
Yep.
I trust them a little bit more than their production this past week if DeAndre Swift goes.
Correct.
And that's what we haven't talked about yet, is that DeAndre Swift is questionable, but he got a full practice in, so I'm assuming he's going to play. And what DeAndre Swift does is just opens up a whole new dimension to this offense, and particularly against the Texans, who are so bad at rushing, where DeAndre Swift can, keep drives alive, keep first downs churning out in a way that Adrian Peterson and Kerryon Johnson just can't do. So to me, that makes me like all of the offensive weapons a little bit more. One, what do you think about Swift in this matchup? And then 2, does that bolster any of your other thoughts there?
Swift, I think, goes, especially like you said, because he did practice and I was dealing with the concussion. So I think that's a good sign. So I think he goes. And I think he's a borderline running back 1, high 2, low 1, however you want to slice it. If he's healthy and goes, you love it. I'm all in. I think it definitely bolsters Hawkinson, Marvin Jones, and I don't think I have enough confidence to play anybody else season long. I think if I'm playing daily, as you mentioned, Hall is the big play guy. I think if you wanted to stuff him in there, he's playing 70% of the Lions' offensive snaps over the last 4 games. A good opportunity. And as I talk through it, it sounds counterintuitive, right? Because we talked about no confidence in Stafford, but I think Stafford will be fine. He's just not going to be relevant as a fantasy QB.
Okay, fair enough. Yeah, if I'm Matt Patricia, which we all know that Matt Patricia does not do what is expected or necessarily correct.
You're way more handsome than Matt Patricia as well. Walsh.
That's true. Matt Patricia doesn't hold a candle to this face. But he and thank you. I appreciate that. You're also way more handsome than Matt Patricia, for what it's worth.
Yes.
If he has his wits about him at all tomorrow, then this offense is running through DeAndre Swift for all 4 quarters in all situations. So that's sort of where I'm at there. So moving to the Texans, their wide receiver core is also pretty thin. We're going to have Kenny Stills and Randall Cobb out. So we are looking at obviously the top 2 guys, Will Fuller and Brandon Cooks, and then Kiki Cutie potentially in the slot, maybe more 2 tight end sets. But yeah, first, well, I guess we'll start with Watson. Confidence level with him against the Lions.
Sorry, I was just looking for. I think he's the top QB. Not that this is hard to say. He's the top QB play of the day. Looking at the slates. But he's QB number 4 in points per game since Bill O'Brien was fired in week 5. He gets back left tackle Laramie Tunsil, who was sick, and I think Watson's in your lineup of confidence.
Yeah, 100%. He's definitely the best quarterback playing tomorrow, which is why I'm because I love losing money. I'm stacking Alex Smith in all of my DFS lineups.
The drug you just can't get away from, right? You had him last week in your season long by force, and now by choice you're putting him in your lineups this week. You're an addict.
I'll actually get into some reasons why when we talk about Alex Smith, but part of it is just leverage off the most popular play on the slate. But anyway,
sure.
Deshaun Watson is, a plug-and-play quarterback 1 at this point. He's been very, very good the past couple of weeks. And with Cobb out and with Stills out, I think the target share kind of narrows around Brandon Cooks and Will Fuller, and both of those guys are absolute starts this week.
Whew.
No problem wide receivers against a very bad Lions defense, who I believe will be missing Jeffrey Okudah and potentially one of their other starting cornerbacks. So, it's an easy spot for them. I don't think I'm going after Kiki Cutie. Despite the fact that he is the nominal slot receiver. They did actually play all of their tight ends more than you would have expected this past week. Jordan Akins led the way, then Pharaoh Brown, and then Darren Fells. Jordan Akins also had 6 targets and was out in the slot for 11 snaps, which was, behind QT and Cooks, who I believe had 20 and 13. Yes. But, the extended slot usage for Jordan Akins, I think, makes him a very startable tight end. If you've been kind of churning the waiver wire for starting tight ends, or you're not happy with your tight end performance, I think Jordan Akins is absolutely a viable start tomorrow.
All right. I have no argument on the wide receiver options. I'm not going to tell you that I gave a ton of thought to Akins there, but Cutie, nice to hear the name back in some conversation, but definitely going to be a little too QT for me.
Ooh, bad there
joke.
It is.
Bad dad joke thrown in there. Here we go. Let's rock and roll, baby.
Brand new dad. You got to throw the dad jokes in.
Got to throw the dad jokes. It comes with the contract.
Well, there we go. So talk to me about Duke Johnson, who in his starting role for 2 weeks has just been an absolute disappointment. Do you see a rebound for Duke this week?
It's funny, Walsh. I see a lot of him in myself with the way my father looks at me and the way I look at him. You just hype him up, and he disappoints you time and time again. But guess what? I'm going to go back to the fucking well, baby. And there's a reason my dad kept me around, because I finally pulled through for him at some point in my life. I'm not sure where. But Duke Johnson here gets one last shot to be the guy with David Johnson eligible to return next week. The Lions defense is just pathetic. Most fantasy running back points, giving up 19 all-purpose touchdowns, 4.68 yards per carry. Only 2 teams have given up more receiving yards to running back than the Lions. If this isn't Duke's redemption, then he should just be dead to everybody. If you've been rolling him, there's nothing changes. I think it's just more upside.
Yeah, I think in season long you roll him, and I think it's fine too, but I am not touching him in any of my DFS lineups tomorrow. I don't think – he just hasn't shown us literally anything. And maybe it's just a role thing. Maybe the Texans running back role is just not a good role for fantasy. And
history would support that.
Yeah, it's tough to really have any sort of confidence in him after these back-to-back disappointments. But again, if in season long, I might have to roll guys like James White this week. So, when you get a running back who is getting the amount of touches and the amount of snaps that he's getting, then it generally becomes worth it. I think to just make it happen, unless you have better options in play.
Slam dunk, Walshy.
Anything else that we need to talk about for this game?
No, 50% of the way there.
All right. Yeah, normally we take a break and I go take a piss and get a beer. I'm going to take Houston in this game.
I'm also going to take Houston. Sweep it through.
And sorry, just one more point on that. If DeAndre Swift is ruled out by any chance in the morning,
yikes.
Hammer Houston -3.
Yes.
Because they are going to win by more than 3 points if DeAndre Swift is out.
Amen.
All right. On to the Dallas-Washington game. We have Dallas as a 3-point favorite at home with an over-under of 46. I don't know why, but I was a little surprised to see Dallas as a favorite in this matchup. Maybe it's just me thinking that Washington is better than they are. I've been surprised every time the weekends and they're not in first in the division, because I feel like they've been the best team in the division. But
I think they look like the best team in the division, and that's not saying much, but they do look like the best team in the division. Yeah, I agree. And I also think there's some optimism, I guess you could say, if you want to even say that, with the Cowboys from last week. Zeke gets back in there with his most touches since I think it was week 2. 23 touches, the most since week 2. So I don't know if there's some optimism growing there, or that the Cowboys are going to start to figure things out a little bit. I'm not really sure what to make of it.
Yeah, that is one thing. I think there is some optimism with the Cowboys after this performance. I was looking, trying to search for offensive line injuries for the Cowboys, and I guess we'll start on that side since we're talking about them. But I was trying to search for offensive line injuries, and there were multiple articles written on various blogs, websites, etc., talking about how the Cowboys may have found something in their offensive line this past week. And, with Zach Martin coming back and you've got Joe Looney and Connor McGovern being in between two two veterans and this whole sort of thing. And I was reading it. I was like, you sure they didn't just play the Vikings? Like, are we sure about that? They didn't just play a team that's 22nd in pressure rate in the NFL, and that this week they're going to play a team that's 7th in the NFL in pressure rate? Like, are we sure that that's the case? So I color me being cautiously optimistic, but also not buying it. If the Cowboys offensive line and Zeke and all of that situation can really get it together this week, and they can run the ball effectively and keep Andy Dalton out of pressure against a very stout Washington front, then I will buy that the Cowboys are real. I will buy that they're legit. Until then, I think Washington's winning this game, and I think they're going to hit the over as well. But anyway, Dallas fantasy options. Andy Dalton, any chance here?
No, he finished top 12 last week. Just 4 of 10 QBs against Washington and finished better than QB 17. It's not going to be Andy Dalton this week.
Fair enough. I very much agree with you. For his pass catchers, I am interested in Amari Cooper, who led the team in targets and air yards. And I know it's not a good pass matchup against Washington, but they've got to get it somewhere. Like Andy Dalton's going to throw for over 150 yards, I think, even if I don't think he's going to have a good game.
Yeah.
So they've got to go somewhere. I'm in on Cooper. I don't think I'm in on Gallup or Lamb in this matchup. Do you have opinions on these wide receivers?
Cooper's the safest, and I would say probably the highest ceiling guy of the group. Despite what's gone on in Dallas, Cooper has totaled 75-plus yards or a touchdown in 8 of 10 games. So even if he comes, like you said, if Dalton throws for 150 and 75 of them go to Cooper, like he's right on par with what he's been doing. I think he's the safest option. I don't have a ton of confidence that the other guys provide you with any kind of safety. I wouldn't be surprised to walk out with a 0 from Gallup or a 3.1 from Lamb.
Yeah, I mean, Gallup runs these sort of difficult routes to connect on. He's mostly close to the sideline. So when he's getting targets, it's hard for it to work. And if it does work, it's great. He's normally going to put up a ton of points, but it's difficult to get it to work. I don't think this is the matchup to exploit.
No, and Washington's slot coverage is pretty good.
Yeah, it's tough. And CD as well has I think he only had like 60% of snaps this past week. He's been quietly losing snaps to Noah Brown and Cedric Wilson. And not like either of those guys are threatening for the starting job, but it's enough where it's significant and it's enough where it's taking food off CD's plate in terms of his fantasy appeal.
Right. It's not like he was getting 15 targets a game and now he's getting 13 or 12. Like it's enough. You're right.
Yeah. What about Dalton Schultz? Do you have any interest there?
I mean, Washington surrendered the league's 11th most fantasy points to tight ends. I think
they're a good matchup.
I think in cheap daily, if you wanted to fucking roll with dice, no, I'm not going to play Schultz. No.
Yeah, with the whole Washington against tight ends, because that's something that I've tried to exploit in past weeks, and it's been with Evan Ingram, and it hasn't fucking worked.
So it's not going to work with Dalton Schultz.
Yeah, like I'm done. I know like Football Outsiders has them like 32nd in DVOA against the tight end or something like that, and I'm just not fucking doing it anymore.
Look, Walsh, I give you credit because you've been burned enough, and you finally decided to walk away, and I give you a lot of credit for that.
Well, thank you. I appreciate that. So we mentioned Zeke. I think it's the volume's just too much here, and potentially the offensive line getting better. He's an absolute start in season long, and I think he's a good play in DFS as well. Yeah,
Zeke's a slam dunk. I mean, Tony Pollard gets his fewest carries since week 4 in the win against Minnesota. But he did have the fourth quarter TD for 42 on a 42-yard run. He's obviously not viable in season long, but I still wouldn't touch him in DFS. But interesting to see he still is involved. The volume is just too good for Zeke, as you said.
Yeah, I mean, Pollard had like 4 or 5 carries. He turned one of them into a 42-yard.
Yeah, I mean, he broke off a nice run. Which again, are you playing the Vikings or?
Yeah, I mean, Washington's a different beast than the Vikings front. So
correct.
Let's move to Washington and talk about our boy Alex Smith. And I'll go through why I think he is a good play in DFS and why I think he's actually a decent start in season long this week as well, if you need to go that far down the well. So Alex Smith in his 3 games, he has thrown for a lot of yards. he has not thrown for a lot of touchdowns. In fact, over his 3 starts, the team has scored 7 offensive touchdowns. He has only thrown 2 of them. That's less than 30%.
Damn.
The Washington football team on the season has a season-long rate of 44% for passing touchdowns.
Okay.
So even with Alex Smith's 3 games, there's regression to be had just on a season level, on a team level rather.
Sure.
And then for the most part, teams in the NFL over the past couple of years, the pass to run ratio for touchdowns has been around 60-40. So if we look on a macro level, we've got even more regression there in terms of the amount of offense that we're getting and the amount of scores that are going through Alex Smith. Now, is it guaranteed that he's going to hit that regression this week? No, obviously not. But regression wins more often than not in the long run. And in a week, the reason for DFS in a week where Deshaun Watson might be fucking 60% owned in these big tournaments or that kind of thing,
sure,
because he is just so obviously the best play. I like Alex Smith, and if the Washington football team scores 3 touchdowns and he just happens to throw for all 3 of them this week, then we're in business.
Okay. I love me some Alex Smith. I've got a soft spot from his Kansas City days. So anything Kansas City, baby. You spend a day there, and you're on my list. I love it. Lifelong, baby.
Him and DeAndre Washington, your 2 favorite guys.
Tyler Thigpen, never forget. Never forget.
Tyler Thigpen had a couple of games there.
Yes, he did.
Games.
Way back. It was actually, it's unrelated to this game, but because I did bring up Tyler Thigpen, the other night I was on my way home. I stopped to get gas, and I was wearing my Chiefs sweatshirt on the way home from work, and gas attendant. And in Jersey, you don't see a ton of that, right? You see more Chiefs fans now because of Mahomes and the Super Bowl stuff, but typically you don't run into Chiefs fans here. And the gas attendant was like, he's like, Chiefs fan? He's like, respect, man. He's like, I got myself an old school Tyler Thigpen jersey at home framed. And I was like, I respect the shit out of you, sir. And I didn't say that to him, but I meant it. Because if that's what you have at home, that's a true
framed
fan.
Too. Framed.
That's a true fan. And I don't have that, but it's a true fan.
Yeah, that's incredible. Well done for that guy for his Tyler Thigpen jersey. I appreciate the hell out of that. Let's talk about these Washington pass catchers a little bit.
Okay.
So Terry McLaurin is questionable going into this game with an ankle injury. My take is, or my read is that he's going to go.
Yep.
And then Dontrell Inman, I mentioned him on last week's podcast. He is also questionable going into this game. I have no read on that, but my only advice would be, if he goes, don't do the cute Cam Sims start that you were maybe going to try and do. It's McLaurin and it's Logan Thomas, who, despite disappointing this past week, still had a decent target share. And in a game where they're in a good matchup, I like Logan Thomas again.
Tell me why you want to get cute with Cam Sims.
Because he's been good for the past 3 weeks. He has like 180 yards receiving, which, if he throws in 60 yards on 5 catches and a touchdown, spank my ass and call me daddy or something. I don't know. There's that's not bad. But other, that's obviously a long shot. And sure, I think if Inman does play, then you can throw that right out the window.
Okay. But so can I expect some Cam Sims in that lineup with Alex Smith?
I haven't actually, which I'll probably have to worry about it. I think tomorrow morning when we get actives and inactives, I might put some leverage in there. I've just been doing straight McLaurin Thomas lineups with Alex Smith and then occasional Gibson lineups. What do you think about J.D. McKissick, who is also a pass catcher for the team again?
I mean, fuck, man. He's I'm just trying to look at his numbers here.
His target share went way down this past week from where it was.
Touch counts at 9, 15, 12, 7, 14. He still leads in targets and receptions, but Cowboys have given up 4.74 yards per carry, 145 per game, which is Antonio Gibson, his Thanksgiving dinner on a plate. So he's going to have himself a day. I don't know. McKissick's got me a little bit more concerned with the drop in production there.
Yeah, I'm definitely concerned as well because it was a drop in snaps too. I brought it up last week, but McKissick had been splitting out wide, splitting out into the slot, doing those sorts of things during those first 2 games with Alex Smith. So despite Antonio Gibson getting like a 50% snap share, McKissick was somewhere from like 70 to 80% in those 2 games.
Yeah.
He was back down to 50% in this past one. And
I think he's like a flex.
Yeah, he didn't split out in the slot at all. So to me, he's about a flex as well. I think you're right there. But you mentioned Gibson. He's set up for it. Like this,
he's going to be fucking
right?
Zeking, baby. He's going to be eating all fucking day.
Hopefully for my Alex Smith shares, he puts out like 150 yards and 0 touchdowns. But we'll see what happens there. Is there anyone else here in Washington that we need to talk about?
No.
All right. Do you have anything else for the people, I guess, then before we let it go? I guess we'll have the normal podcast, I would assume, on Friday being recorded Friday night, coming out Saturday morning. So keep an eye out for that.
Yep.
But do you have anything else for the people?
No, guys, enjoy Thanksgiving. Please be safe, be smart. I know, some people are getting tests before they're meeting family and friends to make sure they're not sick. If you're not, please wear masks or at least be smart about what you're doing. Enjoy the 2 games that we've been blessed with, and we're screwed out of the third by good old Roger Goodell. And buckle in, guys. Fantasy playoffs are right around the corner, and you're fighting for your lives unless you're undefeated. You're still everybody's probably fighting for their lives. It's been a weird year.
Yeah, I am fighting for my life or I am dead. There is no situation in which I am just like clear through. So it's a tough one. It's a very weird year. Hopefully this week brings it back on track a little bit for those of you who've been off track. But yeah, thank you guys for listening. Happy Thanksgiving. Please enjoy it. Please be safe, as Schreck said. And for Schreck, I am Walsh. Later, podcast.
This has been Let's Talk Fantasy Football. Thanks for listening.